the Christian View, where we're talking a little bit about manners today. Emily Post wrote a book on manners, and I don't know if any of you have read it. It's Manners in a Digital World, Living Well Online.
Yeah.
You ever heard of that?
Well, I hadn't until, we did the research on this show. And actually, Emily Post was big back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, I believe, or maybe I'm predating her. But I asked my 12-year-old, I said, do you know what Emily Post stood for? He said, who's Emily Post? Of course, he didn't know who she was. But the neat thing about that book is her family has carried on that business of encouraging manners, and the great-great-grandson wrote the book on how to have online manners. So I think that's really, really awesome.
And as I researched, read some of the clips from the book, it was very interesting, and I thought this woman passed a legacy down through her family about teaching what is right and what is wrong in the form of manners. And they even talk about what you should post and what you shouldn't post on Facebook and other social media. Like, don't post an ugly breakup. Don't bash somebody. That's not etiquette. It's not etiquette to do it out loud. It would say, for me to say something ugly about a person on the show would be wrong. Post something ugly on Facebook, or if you go through a nasty, anything, relationship, and I have seen people post ugly things about a spouse or an ex-boyfriend or whatever. I'm thinking, don't do that. We don't need that. That's not for the world to know. That's between the two of you.
And the scary thing is, if those people, a lot of times when they're applying for jobs and trying to get a professional position, people look at that.
They sure do.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's online has to start offline. And that's education, and we have to do it with our children.
That's good.
I'm always talking to my children about manners, about how to address people, how to address adults. I don't let them call adults by their names, not even our relatives. It's miss or auntie, and you have to start at home with your children to, teach them.
You do have to start at home, because you're right. If the manners aren't already grounded within you, then you're not going to have manners online. So, I mean, you can't change a person, and that's the whole thing about this particular book. It's a fabulous book, but someone buying this particular book is not going to be really the one who needs it in the first place. I think maybe we'll buy it and give it to some of those people, but that'd be the thing to do, maybe, and say, here, I've got a really great book you need to read.
This book helped me so much.
There are some unspoken rules, I think, that even kids have, because I remember one day I posted 3 pictures on Instagram, and Truett said, "Mom, you broke the double rule post." And I said, "What's the double rule post?" I didn't know anything about that. But in other words,
that's one of them laws you broke.
He's saying, that you're trying to draw too much attention to yourself. It's inappropriate.
That's what most of them are doing on Facebook.
I know, but I guess that's a thing that's uncool.
And I'm glad that's uncool, actually, because there are some pressures out there. That gets to be some pressure about putting things on and trying to impress people. What are we using it for? We have to check our motives there and see. But
some people just don't know, honestly, too, because you have different cultures. I mean, I ran into a person, they were of a different culture, and they didn't understand space. They just kind of walked into my circle and moved me out the way. And didn't, but I had to think and understand.
So what am I going to do now?
Because they spoke in another language, and they spoke loud, and, so they just didn't really, they weren't raised the same way I was, or they didn't understand boundaries. And, so cultures are different, and people don't know. So, just like you said, the book. Put the book online.
Well, and as you're talking about online etiquette, and we talk about text messaging and emailing, one of the big no-nos when you're in a relationship, or if you're in a conversation that's emotional or involves conflict, the last thing that you want to do is have that conversation over text or email.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't take it back. And there's no inflection. They have no clue what your personality or face. And there's a couple new apps out there. One is Voxer, that's like a voice texting. And then there's another one, I think it's called Glide. But anyway, it's like a FaceTime text message. And so you take this app, And if you want to text message somebody, it's like you FaceTime. So then at least if you're going to do that and have an emotional conversation or conflict,
At least
do it that way, because then they can see your expressions. Because they're
and hear your heart, because okay can be interpreted as okay or okay. And you don't know how it
you ever
was
looked
said.
at the sentence and it had a period and you wondered what that period means, you know, because of the type of conversation you were having.
That's why I always use exclamation points.
I still think a good old-fashioned eye-to-eye conversation is the best, you know, in most situations.
Sometimes people do mean what they say. You know, you have a conversation with them on social media or texting, and you are very emotional, and that comes out, that tone comes out, you know, but then, you know, you try to act like you didn't and say, oh, I didn't mean it like that, but, you know. So it's best just when you are feeling emotional and you're angry, it's just best not to communicate over the text, you know, because it's going to come out, you know.
And then things get really interesting online, because if you know, if you like somebody or you follow somebody and they don't follow you back, or you like what they put on and then they don't like you back, then you're thinking, okay, they don't like me, I'm not in their clique or whatever. You know, sometimes it just gets really just nasty. It gets
I'd like
mean.
to read the book myself.
I would,
I mean, you know, I was raised at home pretty much manners.
I'd like to read it too.
Because, you know, I'm of probably the generation that doesn't know as much as the next generation underneath me about what is cool or not cool to put on there. I'd like to read it just so that I don't do anything that's offensive online on, you know, social media.
Actually, I would say this too. When you are frustrated or you go through something with someone, please do not tell the world on, you know, you may not have communicated with them, but have you seen these, you know, Facebook messages, and like everyone is wondering, okay, what happened there?
Yes, that's somebody's drama for the day. Stay with us, we'll be right back.